You're almost at 30 million in ARR.
Yeah.
And that took how long to get to?
Right, 7 years.
Phenomenal.
What would you say are the key strategies and decisions that enabled this sort of rapid growth?
The best way to differentiate yourself is to be unique. And the best way to be unique, I feel, is to be. We have basically a love-hate relationship with LinkedIn because on the side, I also build a product that I sold that LinkedIn didn't like. So I get banned from LinkedIn.
I'm a product person myself. I'm constantly going back to the product and making sure that product is absolutely perfect, but you have to be doing that for the right customer.
What I've realized is that people in general don't know how to make people's life easy. I'm going to give you a very specific example.
I've scaled Groove to 5 million ARR with 5 people, bootstrapped. I've been working on not only Groove, but also 2 other companies. The goal is to build a no fluff community where founders can build alongside me as I scale these 2 SaaS companies in real time. You'd have access to my playbooks, contractors, strategies. This is the accelerator, the community, the course that's raw, that's authentic, where you build with us. We build with the same playbook together.
Welcome to the 0 to 10 million ARR podcast. I'm your host, Tom Morcus, along with my co-host, Alex Turnbull, the founder and CEO of Groove and Helply. Today, we're sitting down with Guillaume Moubeche, the founder and CEO of Lempire. Guy launched Lempire in 2018 with just $1,000 and bootstrapped it to a $150 million valuation in under 4 years. In 2021, he sold 20% of the business for $30 million. Lempire's suite of products, including lemlist, lemwarm, lemcal, Taplio, and Tweet Hunter, serves over 125,000 businesses worldwide, helping them enhance outreach and grow revenue. Beyond his entrepreneurial achievements, G is an Ironman and triathlete aiming to rank among the top 100 fastest worldwide, and he's documenting that on his YouTube channel. Check it out. It's actually super entertaining. He's also the author of The $150 Million Secret, where he shares insights on building profitable SaaS businesses without external funding. In this episode, we'll delve into G's journey of bootstrapping Lempire from 0 to $150 million valuation. We'll explore his unique growth philosophy encapsulated in the formula sales equal trust times timing, and how this approach has driven Lempire's remarkable success. G, welcome to the show.
Thanks a lot for having me. I think this is the best intro ever made. So thank you.
Good. Well, I've done my homework. I've been digging into your blog, watching your YouTube channel, watching interviews with you. And so, yeah, I've been super fascinated as we've done the kind of pre-production for today's episode. And I know there's so many things we could get into, but obviously with our limited time, I want to just dive into the really good stuff. You have a ton of wisdom, I think, that you can share with our audience. But let me just start from the top, because I can tell you're a very strategically minded person, very organized. You've thought through a lot of these things at great length. So when you look at Lempire and the 0 to 30 million plus ARR journey that you've been on, what would you say are the key strategies and decisions that enabled this sort of rapid growth over those first 4 years without external funding?
I think the first step is because we started with only $1,000. Eating our own dog food, I felt was probably the best strategy from the start. So the reality is we started with lemlist, so a sales automation platform that was in an extremely crowded market. So if you are in an extremely crowded market where you have competitors who have raised hundreds of millions of dollars, the best way to differentiate yourself is to be unique. And the best way to be unique, I feel, is to be yourself. So from the start, we started to really go back through the first principles and start thinking about the problem our users were facing. And essentially, when you do sales prospecting, the tough part is how exactly do I book meetings with my potential prospects? So we kind of looked at all the platforms and thought about how can we help our users get essentially more meeting booked. Because if they are more meeting booked, it will mean that essentially they get better results and the ROI is obviously better. And the best way to do so was to experiment with our own platform everything we could. So prior to Lemlist, I had a lead generation agency. So I was running campaigns all over the world, sales prospecting campaigns for different type of clients. And what I had found is the more you personalize, the more you add videos or eventually photos, etc., the higher your reply rate was. So eventually we started implementing it in lemlist, and we just like I would say, if I had to describe a bit like from 0 to 1 million, the growth loop that we had, it was very simple. I would run campaigns for different of our customers. From the campaigns I would run, I would actually create success stories from it that I would share it in the community. So for about like 6 months to a year, I was almost the only one sharing content every week, showcasing your campaigns, why it's working versus why it's not working, etc. So educational content. From there, I had a lot of people asking questions. From their questions, it would give me ideas on how to improve the product and how to deliver maybe more value with better features. Then we would create these features, and then I would rerun campaigns leveraging the new features that we had built. So it was basically like a kind of a growth loop, because I would do that for some customers at first, but also and mainly for us. So for me, it would basically be like doing the sales prospecting for lemlist. I basically closed, I think, the first like 100 customers just by hand, by manually doing like outbound. And from there, the content I would created would be also tied to amount of people that I reach out to, meeting booked, and also revenue generated, which I think was always the missing point whenever you do it for like others, because sometimes they don't want to share the revenue of their deals, etc. So I just did it for lemlist at some point, and by doing so and by building in public at the same time, we managed to grow to 1 million in annual recurring revenue in about like from the first line of code, I think it's like 18 months, but from the first person we build, it's something like a year or 14 months or something like this.
Yeah, remarkable. So yeah, a lot I want to jump into, and Alex, of course, jump in if you have questions too. But I just have a couple points on that you said. One was, I was reading a blog where I think, was your first customer Zendesk, or one of your major first customers?
Yeah, one correct? Of the major ones. Yeah, but not the first.
Okay. So like when you were diving into a market that was competitive, and I thought that was super interesting, because you were like, well, you don't have to find product market fit if you're in a space where it's already competitive. There's a lot of options already out there. So I thought that was an interesting idea. And then you found, let's say Zendesk was maybe the first major one or first major logo. Maybe that was very significant for you. And then you were able to kind of maybe leverage that into more. I'm just curious about going into that space. It took you a few months, I think, to land that first customer. So maybe zoom in on that first few months. How were you building the product? And how did you land that first customer? Were you just kind of going after everyone, or did you already know who you were targeting? You already knew your ICP. Like, talk us through that a little bit.
Yeah, I think it took us like maybe like 6 or 7 years to actually know our ICP. We discovered it like in 2024. So this kind of thing takes time, and to be entirely honest, I think it evolves also. So if I take you through like the lemlist journey, when you enter like a market that's super competitive, what happens? It's usually always the same. So early players, they enter through early adopters or innovators. So usually that's like the SMBs, so like small companies, because they are more like likely to start using a scrappy product. They don't have like such a high expectation versus enterprise, who are like much more demanding. And eventually as they grow, like they start focusing on bigger accounts and go up market and enterprise, which usually means that every single market you enter always have cycles. So let's say, like you have a market where you have a competitor of yours who raised, let's say, like hundreds of millions of dollars. It means for sure that they are going to go enterprise, which means that all the initial like SMB market that they might have been focusing on, it leaves a gap. So for me in the early days, obviously, like because I had the tool, what I would do is I would run very different type of campaigns, from founders to growth marketers to sales rep or head of sales, and I would split it by geography. I would do basically like Asia Pacific with mainly like Australia, Singapore, and Hong Kong. Then I would do Europe with like France, because I'm French, so I was like, okay, maybe it's gonna be easier, and also like the United States and Canada as like North America, because I had sale already on that market and I knew it quite well. Very quickly, I realized that French people are like the the cheapest bastard on earth, and it's not a good market to sell. So, like they just ask for more discount and more free trial, etc. And what I realized is like people in the US and in Australia actually had like a similar mindset, which was we're happy to pay, but if it doesn't work, we're going to churn really fast. And it's a different behavior that you can find like in Germany and UK, for example. I think they take a bit more time to sign, but eventually like the churn is also like lower. Whereas in the US, it's more like as long as it's working, we're paying. And if it doesn't, like we churn. And at first, so we would really like target the innovators. So it would be mainly like growth marketers, founders, and some salespeople that would want, an edge over like. So we had what we called also like people doing shadow IT. So typically we had logos like Amazon, Uber, etc. But these people were purchasing lemlists on their own bank account just because it was giving them an edge versus other sales rep. So initially I thought that I could enter through this sales rep as having them as champion. But in the end, they didn't want to tell their manager that they were using another tool because they were doing it a bit like in the back of the IT. And for us, it was impossible afterwards to go see like a head of sales and say, hey, Brandon for your team is actually like using our tool without letting you know. Maybe it's worth like switching to your 200 sales rep, So it put us basically in a tricky spot at that time. And that's when in the early days, we were heavily focused on very small businesses and only like key people, I would say, like in growth marketing or in as founders, were basically running and creating their sales team.
Yeah, that's super interesting. And then, so when you look at that and taking that like early adoption, early success, getting to the 1 million mark took you about, I believe in my notes, about 2 years. And then the next 10 million took about 1.5. So walk me through that. Once you landed your first customer, and then you onboarded or closed your first 100, you were doing that all yourself, basically, just eating your own dog food, going through that approach. Was the driver of growth still the same as what you were just describing, or did it change? Like, what evolved, if at all, getting to that first 1 million? And then we'll talk about the next 10.
I think like from 0 to 1, it was basically just me doing sales. So I very quickly became kind of like the limiting factor of growth, and I didn't realize it because like for me it was my first software company, and prior to that I was just a massive failure. Let's be honest. Obviously I had like an agency that was generating a bit of cash and that was decent for a random 23 years old at the time, but it was not like a scalable business. So I learned a lot, with Lempire and Lemlist, but eventually I realized that when we were at 1 million, it was a whole new level, and that should have made a decision in the past. And when I say like French people are cheap bastard, is I include myself among those cheap bastards, at least at the time. And I was not, like in a mindset of investing enough on the team, on hiring. So it took me a lot of time to kind of like understand how to scale a business, because eventually what happened is like I was creating so much content while I was doing, like the sales prospecting, while I was recording demos, while I was, like closing deals, that I kind of felt like, okay, like it's just working. And eventually like everything I had built had created a really strong product-led growth motion where we had people signing up and becoming customers on their own. And eventually, we reached very quickly, actually, we had this growth pace of 2-digit month-over-month growth rates. So at first it was like 30-35% month-over-month growth rate. And I think up to 10 million, we were always at 2-digit month-over-month. Obviously around 10 million, it started decreasing to like 10%, 8%, etc. But eventually, it was just like insane. And something that I didn't plan is, for me, what I had thought is that growth, whenever you have product market fit, it's like exponential. And eventually when it's coming mainly from organic, because after 1 million, I would stop doing like outbound because I was just focusing on so many other things that it was not my main priority. And because I was seeing the growth of the business being exponential, I was like, eventually, like you just believe it's going to last forever. And I feel like when you have like the product market fit, it's kind of like addictive. everything works. Everything you do works. Every time you organize an event, it gets bigger and bigger. Every time you do something, they have like more people coming. It's just crazy. But what I hadn't planned is like growth is never exponential. It's always like a S curve. So, you know, you have the vibe of the exponential, but eventually you have a plateau, you know. And that kind of happened to us at 10 million. And at 10 million in ARR, again, you know, we were a team of like 25 or 30 people, which did not make sense. You know, like if you want to really like scale the growth, you need to hire more people to be ready for what's coming next. You need to have in place all the processes necessary for it. And that's something we didn't do. And we spent, I think, around like 18 months from that $10 million mark to kind of like rebuild entirely the team, kill the technical debt, be able to have processes to go back to that growth motion that we are in now again and reach, we are at like 29 million in ARR and $10 million in EBITDA at the moment.
Mm-hmm. And I've got many questions here, so let me chime in. From zero to one, what was the team size?
I think like from 0 to 250K, it was just me and 2 developers, and then after that, it was one person would join in marketing, and then one person would join in support, and then we stayed like the 5 of us until like 1 million, and then after that, we started hiring a bit more.
Okay, so zero to one, and then from with that 4 to 5 person team, you're doing mostly direct outbound, closing these deals primarily yourself. What was the ARPU? So average revenue deal size?
Very, very small, very small.
Okay.
That's actually a good learning actually, because a lot of people, you know, when they do outbound, they look at the ARPU. And then, you know, like they decide whether or not it's worth it to invest in outbound sales or not. So typically we had like an average revenue per user or per account, let's say, at around like $100, which is like super low. So that's like $1,200 per year. And then you're like, okay, if I need to contact or outreach X amount of people, how many can I close to make basically like my investment worth my time? You know, it's always a matter of it. But very quickly, what I realized is like, by doing outbound, you know, like myself, I would close basically like faster because I would build trust and I was good at sales. So it was okay for me. But very quickly, it's like if you close someone, you know, like the first, I would say like 20 are very difficult to close because it's a brand new platform. You have no trust, no credibility. They don't know who you are. But then when you have 20 people that you are treating, you know, you treat them like they are the superstar, you know, like red carpet, VIP treatment. They could like send me WhatsApp any time of the day or the night. I would answer. Eventually, these guys, whenever you reach out to them again and you say, hey, by any chance, do you have anyone in your network, business friends or whatever, who would like to grow faster their companies through outbound? Obviously, you know, they're going to have at least 2 or 3 people in mind. So now I wasn't just doing outbound. I would do like a referral and these kind of things. So now, you know, my effort to close deals, it's not exactly the same as the first 20 ones, you know, like, and eventually it scale up and it build up. The more you delight people, the more word of mouth you set up, etc. And then this becomes a very profitable channel.
Mm-hmm. So it was direct, which leads to the VIP concierge white glove service being available 24/7 on WhatsApp, maybe Slack. It's then from there, once they absolutely love your product, it's them being willing and wanting to give you referrals. Maybe you asked for them, maybe you didn't. So then you had that kind of word of mouth referral engine probably starting. Anything else between zero and one? I know that you've been really active on LinkedIn in your history. You're probably one of the pioneers of this kind of new age founder-led marketing. How much do you think that loop kind of affected kind of the 0 to 1?
I think that was extremely helpful because like LinkedIn was a simple way for me to repurpose my content. So I would like basically like give cold email tips. We have basically a love-hate relationship with LinkedIn because on the side, I also build a product that I sold that LinkedIn didn't like. So I get banned from LinkedIn more or less every 6 months to a year. So every time I have to recreate a profile, which is a shame. But eventually, LinkedIn was extremely helpful because, as you mentioned, Tom, in the intro, my belief is that sales is equal to trust times timing. So trust, it's like 0 or 1. Either people trust you or they don't. And timing, it's same, 0 or 1. Either it's the right timing or it's not. And with LinkedIn, the good thing is because you are writing, you are giving essentially a small window into how your brain function, into how you think. And the best way to build trust is, in my opinion, through videos, through podcasts, through content, essentially. So by having LinkedIn, it's funny because you mentioned also Zendesk, as being one of the first customers. What happened with Zendesk is when they came as an inbound leads, I asked them hey, where exactly did you found us, And then the person was saying I really enjoy your LinkedIn content. So I went back to my content. I scrolled down all my posts and I didn't see any post with a like or a comment from that person, but they were looking at it, which means that, there are a lot of people on LinkedIn that are lurkers that you never know about, etc. But step by step, just because I was talking about the success, about innovative way of doing things, about, my vision about cold email, etc., I built expertise and also trust. And eventually, when the timing was right for them, I was top of mind. And this is the power essentially of content and also what some people might call also founder-led growth or personal branding, etc. It's just a way to always be top of mind of people and also build trust, because trust takes a lot of time to build. So the more you create content, the more trust you're going to build. And eventually, when it switch to the right time, and sometimes the switch, into the right time can take 3 years. I've had people, coming back to us after 3 years and say, wow, the platform has totally changed, but I came across one of your posts again and I thought I would give it a try. Sometimes it's so long, but if you are top of mind, people don't forget. And eventually, they make the switch and they think of you as the first choice. And I think this has been always something super helpful for us.
Mm-hmm. We're gonna definitely have another conversation about the LinkedIn banning, by the way. We won't go there on this pod, but I definitely want to hear that, maybe offline. But yeah, so really cool. So that's 0 to 1. I know it's going to be probably tough to go from 1 to 5 million, but I think for most of the viewership, there's a couple of really important milestones here. It's 0 to 1, it's 1 to 5, it's 5 to 10, it's 10 plus. Can you remember what the team size was and what the channels were for growth between 1 and 5?
Yeah, I think for us, to be honest, 1 and 5, it was a lot of me doing more scalable things. So at that time, I started building the marketing team and the sales team. So what we started doing is I had more people in the team running campaigns that we could leverage again for creating content. And at the same time, I would specifically do outbounds, but for, I would say, founder activities. So outbound for founder activities is basically you reach out to a top podcast that you want to be featured in. Then you reach out to some good articles where you feel you could add a little more things. Articles with a high traffic. So you go through Ahref, SEMrush, any tools that you want to use. You find the keywords that you benefit from. So for us, it would be, let's say, cold emailing, sales prospecting, etc., etc. I would find these articles. Which one are the ones that are ranking best? And can I add, let's say, a quote or something like this that would benefit, or maybe some example of campaigns we run, give them something they could add to their articles that's valuable, so that we get backlinks from it and rank from it, etc. And at the same time, it's kind of a hack, I would say, to build more trust faster, is to steal influencers' audience. So as I mentioned, I was building a community at the same time as I was building lemlist, also a community around sales automation, which meant that we had starting to have a bigger and bigger audience, but not as big as, you take the sales leader in the US who have like hundreds of thousands of people. It wasn't comparable. But for them to be able to come and speak in front of a large audience without having to do anything, because it would be me basically reaching out to them and just doing an interview, it was just a super easy and great way to kind of like start stealing their audience. Because what I've realized is that people in general don't know how to make people's life easy. I'm going to give you a very specific example. We're recording a podcast now. Eventually, I have an audience that is going to be potentially interested in hearing that conversation, and potentially also hearing all the other episodes you are creating. Whenever we record this podcast, at the end, most podcasts I'm into, they're just going to send, hey, the episode is live, and that's it. Instead, what we would do is whenever we had recorded something with someone, we'd basically give them short form content that they could share, a pre-written post that they could just publish on LinkedIn. Or we would give them also the link to a post of the promotion so they could like or comment, with just very specific things, basic instruction. Because if you tell to someone, hey, any help would be appreciated, what it asks me to do is to first think, what is any help? What does that mean? Should I post on Instagram? Should I post on YouTube, on LinkedIn? So you're basically making my brain work when I already have 1,000 decisions to make every single day for hundreds of potentially more important stuff. And this is the thing that most people don't do, and that I think we did really well. I was just like a tyrant, in how can we make their life super easy? They just have to follow something and copy paste. So for them, it's if it can be just 10 or 15 seconds of a copy paste and that's it, it's fine. And that's what we were doing, which allow us to do I call this usually you have two ways of building influence, either through a staircase where you say, okay, let's say I have 10K followers. So I'm going to reach out to people with 20K. And once I have done something with 20K, I can reach to people with 40K, etc. Or you could do the elevator one, which is you have already a community, you have a cool vibe or a cool brand, and you go to someone with 100K so that you can reach people with 200K and so on and so forth. And by doing so, I felt like we really, really built a strong brand everywhere, and we associated ourselves, our brand, with the expert in a certain field, creating basically a halo effect around our brand, and that drove even more product-led growth.
Mm-hmm. And did affiliates come into play at that point when you're talking about scale and partnership?
Affiliates for us, it was we had so many bad things happening. The best affiliates for us, they were people, we were buying the lemlist domain in Google Ads because we weren't running any ads. So they were essentially stealing our free traffic and making shit tons of money of it. And again, it was a mistake I made back in the days, but because we were such a small team, we didn't have time to create a proper affiliate program, and we decided to shut it down. But we started it again, I think last year. Lily from our team is handling it, and she's doing a fantastic job. And now we only have very serious people, and it drives a lot of revenue. Yeah,
that's awesome. So two to five, it seems like you almost doubled down on the brand aspect. And you were doing outbound around founder brand. Was there any other kind of specific lever, or was that, you think, the from 1 to 5?
Yeah, from 1 to 5, I think it's this plus basically the transition going towards 10 through employee personal brand also. So it's I started teaching people in our company because we were growing bigger. Yeah, how exactly to create an audience. And by creating an audience, I would have I started writing posts for salespeople in our team. So they were writing only about sales. So I stopped writing about sales and I started writing about more how to grow a company, which meant that eventually I was reaching more CEOs. They were reaching more head of sales. And eventually, we build up in parallel a lot of different personal brands. And from there, we would do the typical things where we're going to make a post about, let's say, sales prospecting templates. And then we would ask people to comment if they want it. Boom, that drives us like, let's say, thousands of comments, thousands of potential leads that we can reach out to, that we can potentially close. Now we're going to do an event. If we do an event, we're talking about a specific topic. Each associated with that event, we have an associated outbound campaigns that's very specific on it. So typically, we were the first one to talk about like deliverability and the importance of making sure your emails end up in the inbox rather than in the spam folder. So whenever we were discussing about that pain point, we knew that all the person joining that event were interested in that thing. So we would reach out to them with specific use cases about how some people were, let's say, using SalesLoft, switch to lemlist and increase their open rate and reply rate by 50%, just because now their email are delivered in the inbox and not in the spam. And by doing these kind of things, we were able to really like be a lot more targeting, and some outbound campaigns were even working almost on autopilot. Meaning that we didn't even have at some point to actually do the demos. We would just like push people through like automated funnels and it would work. So that was quite like fantastic, I would say, at that time. And eventually, like I would say, like reaching to 10, what we didn't anticipate is the switch that we needed to make in order for us to have like the right target audience. So as I mentioned, we were very focused on, I would say, very small businesses, potentially entrepreneurs and growth marketers, or let's say like the first sales rep coming into the company, but we weren't looking properly at the data. So for us, we always had like a high churn, which is normal for like SMBs. Like, I mean, it's common knowledge, that small businesses obviously like churn. So we spent, I would say, maybe like 18 months to 2 years, like really digging into like what was missing. So the first thing, and that was my biggest mistake, was to think that product development can help you dramatically reduce the churn. It's not true. It's partially true. But I think it's really like a coward move. So I'm calling myself a coward because it's basically like I'm an engineer like initially. So I love product. I love software. It's something I'm passionate about. But eventually like thinking about the product as your baby and how you can improve it, it's always super exciting. Thinking about the new features, all the value you're going to bring to your user, it's super exciting. But the reality is you have to face the data. And if your churn is high, you need 100% to find the cohort of users who is not churning. And you need to focus on that cohort if you want your business to grow. Because churn eventually will be way too strong to sustain, and you will not be able like to grow the business. Because let's say like for us, it was like a churn, I think at around like, let's say 10-ish%, 10, 11% in the early days, maybe 12% monthly. And then eventually, by building new features, we managed to reduce it to, let's say like 8%, but it took us like several years. But eventually, it's like, it's still way too high. Because when you're churning like 8% monthly and you're at $30 million in ARR, the new monthly recurring revenues that you need to add to just match, the churn, it's just impossible to sustain in the long run. So what we decided to focus on afterwards was like, and this is something we should have done a lot earlier. It's what is the cohort that doesn't churn? And we realized later that we have a cohort that has basically like a net retention over 100%, which is, like the sales team over 5 people for us. And eventually by focusing on them, we realize that the churn rate every time we close them stays the lowest we've ever seen. And we keep having that same retention, which means that right now what's happening at Lemlist is that we are replacing low quality MRR with high quality MRR. So low quality MRR is basically like people who churn frequently. And then high quality is basically like the one who are just having more sales. But if you even think from a business perspective, it kind of makes sense because someone was like a sales team of 5 people already mean that they are building a sales motion and they have been successful in building it. Otherwise, they wouldn't have been able to hire like 5 rep. However, for like the small business, when it's the first sales rep, often before them, it was the founder selling. And the founder make a lot of mistake in hiring like sales rep or their first sales rep. So usually they fire, then, they don't have the lemlist, they decide to churn and so on and so forth. So we saw like so many like shitty stories, of like companies failing. So they decide to churn or like so many things that is basically outside of our control. Mm-hmm. And I think that happens a lot when you target like SMBs or very small businesses. And that doesn't happen when you start targeting more established companies. And it took us many years to find out about that. And I think that was a mistake.
Yeah, really, really interesting stuff right there. I mean, fascinating. And I don't think it is said enough where as a product, I'm a product person myself. I'm constantly going back to the product and making sure that product is absolutely perfect, which is what we should be doing as product people, but you have to be doing that for the right persona, the right customer, or else that churn is still going to happen. I think that's really, really important for folks to understand. One quick follow-up question, and I'm going to pass it over to Tom, is do you think that you started to, and I think you said it, but do you think that you started to see a reduction in churn because you're narrowing the ICP? Whether or not you were narrowing the ICP based on industry or data, it sounds as if that could have been the case, but I'd love to hear more there.
Yeah, definitely. I think like the truth is when you have like only one ICP rather than 5, because that's what we had in the past, everything is easier. It's easier for your team because they know who they target, and everything that's outside of the scope, you can find it straight away. Like if they start doing like articles about how growth marketers should automate entirely their sales prospecting, I'm like, why? Like it doesn't make sense. We're sales team focused over 5 people. So what are these guys like? What are their problems? How can we help them? Everything becomes like clearer. Same like from pure product prioritization. When you have like 2 type of persona, let's say like a founder, for example, using lemlist, they're going to want features that a team of 5 did not care about, or like typically like role and admin roles. A founder with alone, it doesn't give a fuck about it, Mm-hmm. But a team of 5, they must have it, or a team of 10 or 20 or like 50. So for us, like narrowing down to this target of between 5 and 100 sales rep, we know that we are like the tool to use, and we focus only on them. So we adapted entirely the product, the integration with like the right CRMs, etc. And it took us like 6.5 years, like to arrive to that conclusion. But clarity is the ultimate cheat code, and like clarity and focus, it's something like I always love to build. I always love new stuff. But for us at Lempire, like the last year, from a strategic perspective, being a lot more focused, I think is going to be key for the years to come. And we already see the results. So it's exciting. It's very exciting.
Love it. Love it.
Gee, I got a couple questions. Hopefully we'll have enough time to get through them, but because this is super fascinating. I think there's so much great learning from this. So let me ask you this. You mentioned in a competitive environment, which is what you were in, you don't have to find the product market fit. It's already there. It's like established. And to that point, how then do you break into that competitive environment? I think you've mentioned before that it's about execution, but being very practical, like tell me about those early customers then, maybe that first 100 or so. Were they using other tools? And was that something that you had to like actually like break in and be like, you should use lemlist instead of XYZ? Or were you going after companies that hadn't even started using these sorts of tools in their outbound, for instance?
So it's a very good question. I feel like it was a mix of both. It was a mix of people who were using existing tools, but were a bit like disappointed in the results that they were having. So for me, that was like a good target because I was promising a better outcome, and I knew that I could deliver a better outcome, not only because of the product, but also because I would add the kind of like service brick on top of it. Because I had run so many campaigns in the past that I know that people, and it's easier said than done, but it's the biggest value, I think, of consulting in general is because these guys, they are not, heads into they are not doing this on a daily basis. So when they come from the outside, it's always easier to look, at what people are doing and say, hey, here you can optimize, here you should change that, here you should tweak this a little. So for me, I would know from the start by walking them through their campaigns and switching the wording, etc. They would already get better results. So some of them were willing, to switch or just keep both subscription and then A/B test and see what's working best. So that was just the initial thing. Is I feel like whenever you're launching a software, a lot of people feel like it's going to be magical and that, a product-led growth is going to come because the product is awesome, etc. It's not true. The more service you add at first, because your product is shitty, obviously, the more you do the white glove things where you can walk them through each step and add really this service layer on top of it, the more trust you're going to build, the more feedback you're going to get, and the better your product will become very quickly. But I was also targeting founders who were just starting their business and who did not know if outbound was working for them. And for me, that was quite easy because the trick in the way I was doing my campaigns is as soon as I had a meeting booked with people who don't do outbound, it was an easy sell. Because what I would say, it's very simple. We're on a meeting one-on-one, and then they're like, okay, I'm not sure if outbound works for me. I'm like, can you close deals? Yes, of course I can close deal. So what's lacking? Just being on meetings with prospects. I'm like, yeah, but why did you take that meeting? And then, they realize that because I sent them an email, they didn't come to me. And then I say, that's the only thing I offer, it's for you to have the meeting. I'm not going to promise that you're going to make more sales. I don't know if you can close. I don't know if your service or product is any good. But if you promise me that you can do that, I promise you that you will have enough prospects to talk to and to close deals and eventually make revenue out of it. And then, it was a close and it was quite easy from that point on.
Were you PLG from the start?
Yeah. We were allowing people to create accounts, sign up, and also pay. But in full transparency, I think that was a mistake because when we launched on Product Hunt in the early days, at that time, Product Hunt was quite a cool platform. So basically, each day you have people upvoting for the best product, etc. We were product of the day, so we had quite a lot of traffic, but a lot of people signed up and never came back because the product, the onboarding, nothing was ready. It was really shit. So the way I was doing sales also evolved a lot because it was my first software. So at first, I wanted to show the product, etc. Mistake again. So first thing, what you need to do is really digging into the problem. What is the problem? Digging into the root cause. Try to truly find what they are struggling with and what they are looking to accomplish. And from there, you bring the solution. And if it's not the solution and if you don't have the solution, it's fine. You just say, no, I don't think it's a fit. And you don't even show your product. But if you have the solution, you just show a single feature. You don't have to show the whole product, just a single feature. And then you explain why this feature is going to solve their problem. So it's super important to keep it simple. So it's one feature, one sale. And then once, you want to sell them on other features, you can do this during the onboarding. But the first sale needs to happen on one single feature that can solve one single problem. So that's kind of how I was doing it when, obviously, it's a lot of trial and error. I did maybe 500 demos over a couple of years. So obviously you get better at it with time.
Yeah, that's awesome. Alex, did you want to jump in?
Yeah. First of all, I love that. I love everything about this interview. And that's exactly my mentality over my 12-year career is in all my products, I never had a solution. I literally just would get on calls with a piece of paper and show them, not even show them, but after the fact of going through and asking them about their problems, showing them a little sketch of what I think it could be. And then from there, it just kind of evolved. I think it's really, 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 really cool, really important for founders to understand that don't build first, figure out the problem, and then think about the solution. And then at the same time, what are you doing? You're building trust. You're going back to those folks. You're saying, hey, would love to show you kind of what we have next. And then from there, it evolves. Really, really cool stuff. All right. EBITDA. Let's talk about EBITDA. You're almost at 30 million in ARR.
Yeah.
And that took how long to get to? Just to recap.
From first line of code, it's been 7 years. 7 years now. It's our anniversary. Actually.
7 years to 30 million ARR. Phenomenal. EBITDA on that is
10 million.
10 million.
Yeah. And it's EBITDA cash. So it's very close to the cash.
Okay. Now, total team size right now.
I think we're like 100 people.
Okay, you're 100 people. Okay. Now, primarily those folks, where are you hiring? What's the average employee revenue?
We're hiring from France mainly, and then we have our support team is in Serbia and France, and then we have people all over Europe, and a bit of I would say freelancers all over the globe, but it's mainly Europe, I would say.
Amazing. So 10 million in EBITDA cash. What does the cap table look like?
I own 70% of the company.
Okay.
And then the partner who acquired back in the days 20% now owns 30%, and then we're both diluted in around 10% with employee shares that haven't been it's the option pools that haven't been distributed fully. So it would put me essentially at 63%, and it would put them at 26 or 27, something like this.
Okay, cool. You seem to be very EBITDA conscious. At what point were you EBITDA conscious? Was it 0 to 1? Was it 1 to 5? When did you say, hey, listen, I'm a bootstrapper. I'm not going to go off and raise. I understand that I'm going to cash flow this, and it's going to be an amazing cash flow business. At what point did you kind of realize that?
To be honest, I wasn't I don't come from money. So my parents, grew up on a farm. They don't have any degrees, etc. So for me, spending money that I don't have always felt something that I should never do. I also have one uncle who is a gambling addict, etc. So he had lots of problems with debts and this kind of thing. So in my family, it's kind of I would say it's also a self-limiting belief in some ways, but in any case, my relationship with money has always been don't spend what you don't have, and try to always save money on the side, because you never know what rainy days can bring. And I guess this is also part of the background of my family, who are farmers and things like that, where some seasons can be shit, so you have to have at least a little bit of savings. And eventually, I think from day one, it was a goal to be profitable. But eventually, it's where do you put the cursor? And I think right now, we are close to 30%, 35% EBITDA margin. I think it's a bit too much. I think we should spend more. But at the same time, having high EBITDA allows you to have a lot of leverage if you want to acquire other companies, because you can basically get loans that are based on a multiple of your EBITDA. So having a very high and healthy EBITDA gives you a lot of options. It's something that VCs don't like, because it means that obviously if you're keeping cash in the company, it means that you're not investing it well enough to bring more growth. And for them, it seemed kind of a bad picture. But the truth is, I don't give a fuck. It's my company, so I want to run it. I believe that opportunities can arise, and having some cash in the bank and having leverage with potential banks if you find like a build-up strategy or something later on, it can really be like helpful. So I kind of like it, but strategy for 2025 is going to be to reduce a little bit our EBITDA margin so we can invest a little bit more on some other projects.
Yeah, I love that. It kind of leads me to the next subject I'm really interested in around is over the course of the lempire here. It sounds like lemlist was your first product, and then you started either building or buying to create this suite of products. How did that come about? Was it, I mean, the way that happens typically is cash flow, where you say, geez, I've got this cash flow, and I think based on my customer journey and the first principles that in their journey, they're going to need this. How did that kind of come about? Were there any influencers out there that kind of suggested this, or was this a natural kind of occurrence for you?
Yeah, in full transparency, it started with the product that got me banned from LinkedIn, actually. So Lempod, back in the days, eventually, like after 1 year of building lemlist, I wanted to launch like a quick side project, because I was a bit frustrated. Initially, we were talking about the importance of LinkedIn, etc. And what I would do is I would be in some like WhatsApp groups with other founders, let's say 10 to 15 founders, where everyone would put their LinkedIn post and we would engage on each post. But when you do that consistently for like, I don't know, a month and a half, I was like, fuck it, like there's got to be a way to automate this. It's so stupid. I know I trust these guys, like they are all like really good founders. I want to give them a like straight away, but if I'm on a meeting or whatever, sometimes I can't do it. So I was like, okay, I asked the guys in the group, hey guys, if I build like a Chrome extension that allows to automate this, would you use it? Everyone was saying yes. So I started Lempod at that time. And the idea behind it was like to have different pods of people, like group of marketers, entrepreneurs, like all over the world. And for each group, have an admin that can choose who enters or who doesn't, and it started working extremely well. Like it kind of like skyrocketed. Like without a lot of effort, we reached out like $600,000 in annual recurring revenue in around like 14 months, I think, of billing. And we're like, okay, like this is maybe the moment we need to stay focused, because at the time we were just a team of like 6 or 7. And I was like, okay, maybe we should sell it. Also because I think I felt the product was getting out of hand. Like we had so many, like my initial vision of it was like people are going to be in very like high quality groups, and the admins are going to be the one, just choosing who enters or not. But eventually, like it wasn't the case. We started basically creating like a monster where it was just people buying likes on LinkedIn, and LinkedIn didn't like it, and I understood. But at that time, we had an opportunity to sell. It was a group of like Australian entrepreneurs who wanted to buy it. I had never sold the company. I think I kind of fancied the title of Exit SaaS Founders, which was a bit stupid and a bit vanity oriented, but I just thought it would be a good experience. And I decided to sell the business. And right after, like LinkedIn messaged me and said, hey, you need to shut down your project. I said, I have sold it. Then they said, okay, give me the name. We had signed like an NDA in the contract, so we couldn't give the buyer's name. So they say, okay, we're gonna ban your profile until you give us the name. I say, okay, but it's not gonna change anything. So eventually, like they banned me, and they were really pissed about it because they had to change entirely their algorithm on how they give reach to post based on Lempod. So they spent basically like a year with their engineers to detect pods and pod likes. So right now, basically, the tool doesn't work, but some people continue. Like I had a chat with the guy who acquired it, and it's still a cash cow. Basically, like they don't invest any money on it, but a lot of people are purchasing it because they buy likes. So for them, having like hundreds of likes on their posts, because we can't see the actual views, they don't care. They feel that they are like just getting like boost, and it's just an ego boost. And this is how you see like that social media is sometimes really fucked up, but. Yeah. And from that moment, basically, I kind of like realized how you could structure a deal. And I learned from it a lot. And eventually I had an opportunity to acquire another company. And I was like, I can be super creative in the way I want to do that deal. And I really enjoyed it. And that's why I acquired like another companies, like 2 companies actually. And yeah, it was very opportunistic, to be honest.
And those 2 companies were which? I know you acquired Taplio, but
yeah,
what were the other?
Taplio and Tweet Hunter. It's like, it's the same company, but 2 products. Sorry. It's, yeah.
Okay. Understood. And
Taplio was doing basically like, I think it was at 3 or 4K monthly recurring revenue when we acquired them. And now it's doing like millions in ARR. So it's, because for us, it was kind of like, it was very well imbricated into the vision of having more intent when you do like outbound and having more teams who create content on social to create that intent and then reach out to them to get like better results.
Mm-hmm. So it sounds as if like you going back to your original kind of how you started, you were eating your own dog food. Sounds like you were eating your own dog food here, and you were like, hey, this is going to integrate or be part of the customer journey really as a big value add. It can probably kind of be the same ICP potentially, or just slightly a variant of, and it could potentially integrate into my other products. Is that kind of the thinking?
That was the thinking like 2 years ago,
Okay.
when we, or a bit more, I would say like 3 years ago when we acquired the company, 2.5 years ago, I think. Yeah, almost 3 years ago. But eventually, like we realized that we were wrong, which is it's. I think it's also part of the game. Like right now, what's happening is like Taplio and Tweet Hunter, they are heavily focused on creators, and it doesn't suit well our ICP for lemlist, where we have the full focus and the big clarity. What we thought initially was like, teams will have their marketing team create content for salespeople, and salespeople will leverage it to actually do the outbound, etc. In reality, it's a vision that very few companies can actually apply, and it's a lot of education on the market. So for us, it was too much of an effort to make it work, or we were not good enough to actually make it work. But because we had a lot of traction with creators and people who wanted to build personal brand on LinkedIn with Taplio, we're like, it's too big of a risk to make a total switch when we have a business that's growing and that's generating so much revenue. And same on lemlist side, where we know exactly who our target audience is now. So we decided now kind of like to split them and really have like 2 distinct strategies for both products, where we're not going to integrate them. Like they're integrated if people want to do it, but it's not going to be our priority. It's more like 2 different lines of product, and we're fine with it.
Okay. That's amazing. So, where in the journey were the others? And by the way, I think something that is really important for the viewers here is that it looks as though something that wasn't mentioned that we're mentioning now, that was a big lever for growth, was your multi-product approach and your acquisitions. Would you say that that's pretty accurate?
It is accurate. Yeah, it's. I think the multi-product is an interesting strategy. So I can give you like each product has kind of like its own strategy. So I would say like acquiring a new company for Taplio and Tweet Hunter, we failed at integrating it into like a true suite of products, but actually like we really nailed it at leveraging everything we've been doing before to skyrocket the growth. So typically Taplio was doing, like, as I said, a few $1,000 in MRR is what it was, not even a product, and we skyrocketed to millions. That's something that obviously the founders who created that, so Thibaut and Tom, we acquired the company, helped a lot because they are like really smart and they did great. But at the same time, with our community and with all the push and all the notoriety we had with lemlist and the work we had done on LinkedIn, because these guys, they were like really good on Twitter, but they were almost like inexistent on LinkedIn. So the fact that we could replicate with our community and everything, and leverage also our network to create really like deep connections with influencers, was extremely helpful and helped like the product skyrocket. When it comes to like lemcal, which is basically like a competitor to Calendly in some ways, the strategy is a pure freemium product. So give as much features for free to the larger audience possible. So eventually some people, the funny thing, like the funny numbers for you guys, it's like lemcal, it's basically generating less monthly recurring revenue for lemcal than it's generating monthly recurring revenue for lemlist. Because from lemcal, you have like the drop down and people can discover lemlist through lemcal. And eventually like the amount of people who are paying lemcal are actually like way less than the people who are paying lemlist through lemcal. So they basically discover the lem suite through lemcal. And that was kind of the initial strategy. And finally, like lemwarm, that is basically the product focused on a specific problem that is deliverability. For us, it's kind of like a Trojan horse. So what we wanted is to be able to reach out to people who are doing sales prospecting with our competitors. So let's say Salesforce, Salesloft, and outreach users. We reach out to them, asking them whether, like, it's very simple. It's like, what's your open rate currently? Like, if it's lower than X, you potentially have problems. Shall we chat about it? Then, we push them lemwarm. And once, they are on lemwarm, we're like, hey, by the way, do you know that with these deliverability settings that have potentially improved your results on Salesloft or outreach, you can actually leverage them directly into lemlist to do X, Y, and Z and more that you can't do in. And because you have already built trust on that first step, you can upsell to like bigger accounts. And that's kind of how everything, came into play and how we managed to grow it. But again, like sometimes I think the most important thing is like be aware of when you can be wrong and when you can and pivot, because we started things with very different hypotheses in the past, and eventually we made the right switch to find out what was working. And sometimes if your initial strategy doesn't work, it's fine. You should always keep that lean startup approach where you switch to something that's working and keep it that way.
I love it. And my last question before Tom might have a question or two, if you're willing. The Taplio deal, would you mind sharing the structure of that?
Yeah, of course. So Taplio and TweetHunter, it was like a deal that was made together. So TweetHunter was doing 1 million in ARR, and let's say Taplio was basically like a few $1,000 in MRR, so very like small. What we did is we bought this $2 million in cash, and then we had a very aggressive milestone and earnout type of deal, where if they reach 2 million in ARR, they would basically get another million. If they reach 3 or 4 million, they would get another million in cash. And then as of, I think, 6 million, they would get $2 million for every new milestone that they reached. So the goal was, and there was one trick also that, and this is why like deals are just amazing in the M&A. So what I also did is, because they were like a small team, and I didn't want them to kind of like spend too much money to acquire, customers in a non-profitable ways, I decided with them that the profitability, the gross margin, let's call it like this, was stuck at 45%. So they keep a gross margin of 45%. So by doing this, what I managed to do is that while they were growing, I actually financed the deal through the cash that they were making. So in the end, Taplio and TweetHunter, like if we look at the overall deal right now, we paid a bit more than 10 million, I would say, in cash, but they generated in free cash maybe like 5-ish. So the actual cash is like 5, and they are making like close to 7 million in annual recurring revenue, which means that right now the actual cost is less than 1x the ARR, which is insane.
That's insane. That's insane.
And the goal, and this is why I like merger and acquisition, is like you truly need to understand what is important for the person you're making the deal with. So for Thibaut and Tom, I knew that they wanted to become millionaire. They were two. So 1 million each in cash. It was okay. I knew they could buy like their home. I knew they were fine with it. And then after that, the product, both products were growing like fast. They knew that we would help them to grow them like even faster. And at the same time, like we wanted to have something ambitious, but also attainable, where the incentive for them is really high. And we structure things in a way where if everyone wins, everyone wins. If the cash is there, everyone's going to win. And I think this is something that you can do, like you do a lot of different hypotheses, and then you see like how you want to structure things, and you look at the worst case scenario and the best case scenario, and you see if you're fine with it. And if both sides are fine, usually like you can find some very creative ways to do things because the reality, it's like there for every business out there, there are always risks. Sometimes the risk, it's like you never know. It can be like one of your co-founder, dies, or one of your something like some people you discover things like, or Google decide to launch a product, or something can happen. And for a founder who has never sold a business or whose business is getting bigger and bigger, that's what if scenario is always in their mind. So whenever there is like a liquidity event, whether it's selling your company or selling shares of your company, you always have as a buyer a certain leverage on the person, because you know what they're going through. Or at least like I knew it, because for me, I knew the pressure it is to have a business that's like growing fast, where you believe that tomorrow maybe I'm going to lose everything. And I haven't been taking any cash from now. So by having this kind of leverage, I think you can really do some great deals and make everyone happy in the end.
That's amazing. It's amazing. Offline, I'd love to chat with you about a few things on our side. That's why I'm so intrigued in the multi-product and the M&A approach. Well, that's it from my side. Tom, do you have any, maybe one or two? I know that we're way over. So,
I just got to ask, how's the training coming for the Ironman? How are you feeling about it?
To be honest, like it's quite intense. I have a new coach now, so this week I'm doing like a 18-hour training block. So it's quite tough, but the Texas Ironman in end of April should be fun. So my goal is to qualify for a World Championship, and I'm gonna go all in there, and I'm highly motivated. So everything's going fine so far.
Beautiful. I love it. Well, that wraps up today's episode of the 0 to 10 million ARR podcast. A big thank you to Guillaume Moubeche, founder and CEO of Lempire, for sharing his journey and strategies that help him bootstrap from 0 to 28 million ARR, I think closing in on 30 million now, and $150 million valuation. If you enjoyed today's episode, be sure to subscribe, leave a review, and share it with other founders looking to scale their businesses. And to learn more about G and Lempire, visit lempire.com. G, thank you for joining us. And to everyone listening, keep building, keep scaling, and we'll see you next time.
Thanks a lot. I had a great time.